man is able in many ways. And what that means is he has the ability to both observe his construction and his deconstruction. What that means is that when you look at the person, depending on your honesty of actuality, you know whether you need to believe something or not. When you're in a multi-intelligent system, what that means is that perhaps your intelligence is conceived by another design of intelligence. In other words, there is this one Godhead personality sense, just there's this one God, and at the same time, there is the silent flow of life. And so we do see a lot of separate entities trying to find themselves through the eyes of others. In other words, because of your unknown, human beings subconsciously are aware of the temporal nature of reality. But you see that you are interpreting the temporal nature of reality, and then that observance can be a greater sense of being. Because you see, what is always greater than the things that we see? That seeing the seer, observing the observer. And life is a very interesting story because we tell it to ourselves until we realize that we're in a sense having experiences of the story. So when you begin thinking of how to choose your set of mind, you think about separation, individuality. So how can a human being talk to another human being? By separating something to the degree that separation is seen. So when you're a kid, you might see God and other things. Your experience doesn't mean it is not godly. You see, what is important for mankind? Where his attention goes. And if his attention goes to products where he has not explored, you're not being a proper explorer of life. So before you explore life, you need to be aware that you're exploring. Not a lot of people are aware they're exploring. You're not aware of how you're changing in regards to the focus of what is real to you and what is not. Your adjustment of reality and things not being real and the meaning you comply, the accumulation of the meaning is not made from a linear source. There is an intelligence that utilizes non-linearity much better than us coming to our linear conclusions. What that means is we have one kind of technology, but there are greater technologies. And a greater technology than the one which man made for himself is one that not made man, made everything else. So it is in a sense to look at your own reflection and to see who you see. Who do you see in your eyes? Look in the mirror, who do you see in your eyes? And you see the most immediate ideas which you're thinking about who you are. But in a sense, you can't tell someone to think when they're a thought. Because we have sensitivities in our dimensional experience. Guys, communication cannot be done with human intelligence properly. Existential communication. Because it transcends the human idea and it brings ideas you've never heard of. In other words, if my truth is ideas no man has ever heard of, how can we know it? We can't, so it's experiential. And that's what I'm saying, because there's an unspeakable element to experience that we do not need to get distracted by. Sincerity means communicating honestly. Communicating honestly means you let go of the illusion. And letting go of the illusion means you let go of the story. And when you let go of, when you have let go of all stories, you see that Remembrance Day meant remembering who fought, not why. In other words, it is not, man can be foolish, and that means that he can cut off his own wisdom. And so man must not be bad to man. If man is still stuck in his communication with other human beings, how is he communicating with other things? Well, not in realities that can be shared. You see, our ability to communicate experience means we need to have a greater tolerance for all kinds of experiences. So what we call insanity is actually a reutilization of your nervous system in a manner that is as natural as the ape's changing face. We must bring death and eternity to our doorstep by seeing that they're waiting there for us to acknowledge. You need to acknowledge your life. And then with self-awareness, self-observance in a very calm, and I don't want to say very calm, it has to, but it's suggested, it's recommended to be in a calm and still environment, a comfortable area. Relax your body, and then slightly your experience is going to alter because the ideas you have that are convincing you of you having some experiences are going to change. So as the idea of you becomes more integrated, your sense of separation changes because there's less of a reference point that is separate. So human consciousness works in integrated flows where the way it can understand itself is through experiencing each other's being. What that means is that right now I'm talking to you. What that means is I'm explaining some visual idea in myself, in who I am right now to be able to communicate this. But you see, there's some moments I know I can't communicate because you're hearing me in in this moment, and at the same time I have lived many moments. I've lived through many moments. So my understanding of self is through the understanding of learning the infinite wisdom of life by seeing the infinite changing processes that the self is instantaneously going through and receiving. So what that means is that when ape changed to man, we forgot to acknowledge something. We only acknowledged that element. We acknowledged that the ape was not aware that it was greater because it couldn't communicate. So if our evidence is based on what we can't see, we are working with our own assumptions. Eventually what will happen is that we will see that we will have to pull off the box. Every consideration of reality in space and time you have right now, once observed, after it has been observed now, is of a different fabric. It blends with your ability to collect information. Man is, in a sense, God's touch. When Leonardo da Vinci painted that picture on the Sistine Chapel, I think in his mind, regardless of whatever Christian interpretation was there, he was like, every human being should see how they are that which connects everything else with separation because it can be aware of it. We are the touch that never belonged to man and never belonged to God, but it was a touch when they both touched together, when they got that revelation of origin that crumbled through the unknown to be found again. Through the greatest tear of joy that can come from your most compassionate act to this being, to this life. Thunder never means to surprise you. It never is there to bother you. It doesn't mean thunder is trying to be mean to you. Thunder strikes when it has to. Revelation will come when it's your time. Your energies will blend, the planets will align, and you will realize that once the planets have aligned and you're looking into the same eyes that God sees you, as Meister Eckhart said, your interpretation matters to you, and others' interpretation matters to them, and you choose what path you walk, because no one can walk this path for you. And continue on with great ability, my friends. Much blessings, and breathe deeply, because you might not realize it, but certain concepts which you might be uncomfortable even thinking about can adjust your breathing. So the reason, I believe, this is my view, of course, that in meditation we had all these practices, all these breathing techniques, is because they realize eventually, after you acknowledge a certain range of your memory and your past, when you acknowledge the darkness, your body reacts to it in an uncomfortable way, so the breathing changes, so the breathing needs to be monitored by a conscious process. So man has now his tools to understand every other, not man, but understand more. to understand much more from reality. Thank you.